So I don't think that Fields has proved enough to show that he's a franchise quarterback. However, if I am the Bears, they're going to have the second pick or a really high pick this year. I'm not even considering drafting a quarterback right now because I think it's definitely worth the shot to still let Fields develop because I think he could develop into a franchise guy. But here are the problems. Obviously, he's got great legs, right? He can run around the whole field. He's just ran for 1,000 yards, but his passing is still not great. It is improving. He's got an 88 passer rating this year, which is pretty decent. So that's why it gives me hope that he'll be a franchise guy one day. But as of right now, he hasn't proven anything. Um, he's been sacked 46 times, and the Bears' offensive line has actually been pretty decent this year. So I think that goes into why he has a 5-18 record in his career. You can't be running around all day, just running into sacks, holding onto the ball for 5 seconds, scrambling around. It's costing your team, it's costing your offense, and it's costing you yards. So I think he's got some nice statistics this year. He's definitely taken a leap in his second year. But if I'm the Chicago Bears, I'm not ready to put all my money into this guy and start, be ready to call my franchise guy. We don't have to worry about quarterback for 10 years. No way. Not yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I wouldn't go that far to say that, they should just completely invest in him. Like, I don't think they should give him a contract extension this second. I do think that they should be all in on trying to get him as much talent as possible to surround him with in his third year. Like you said, JM, they're gonna have the second, the third, but they're gonna have a very high draft pick this year. They need to use that wisely. They're really devoid of talent pretty much everywhere on that team, except offensive line, like you said, is pretty good. The weapons are lacking. The running backs are fine. The defense is horrible.
Defense.
They really need to improve in a lot of different areas. They have a ton of cap space and they have draft capital, so they have some of the means to at least improve it next season. I don't expect them to take this leap into being a contender by any means, but I do agree that he needs to take some serious steps forward still with passing. He's definitely improved since the beginning of the year. He was holding onto the ball for way too long. And I still think that even when he's asked to sit in the pocket, he still has a bad tendency of just sitting in the pocket and just waiting for it to collapse. And then he either runs or takes a sack. So I do think that he needs to improve upon that a lot. I think that he's in a similar position to where Lamar Jackson was his rookie season. Lamar was a great runner, and he wasn't a good passer. I mean, we saw how bad he was in that playoff game against the Chargers. It was clear that he needed to take a step forward passing wise. Then he did, and he ended up winning league MVP because of that. So I think that, and a lot of people like to compare Fields now and say that, oh, it's just like when people are calling Lamar a running back. I agree that when people were calling Lamar a running back his rookie season, I mean, there was some validity to it because he wasn't a good passer. When people were still calling him that after his MVP season, those people had something, a screw loose or something, because he was a great passer and he still is a great passer. So I agree. I think that he needs to show some serious step forwards passing wise. I mean, I was looking at his statistics earlier today. He's still in the bottom five in the league in a lot of the advanced stats when it comes to passing. Bottom five in completion percentage over expected. The offense is still bottom five in passing VOA. So clearly the passing needs to take a major step forward. I think getting him weapons will certainly help that. But this third year is going to be critical for him. The third year is usually the make or break year for a quarterback. And they should be all in on trying to help him as much as they can in that third season take that leap.
I completely agree. Get him some more wide receivers. Something I didn't like even when at the time when it happened was the fact that Matt Eberflus may be a great head coach, but I would have liked to see them hire an offensive head coach. I would have really liked to see that for Justin Fields' development. I don't think you can name three worse haters of Justin Fields heading into the season, and even during the season than us three. But he's proved, I think, me wrong. I almost tend to agree with a lot of what you're saying. I was going to compare him to Lamar Jackson, his season, his rookie season. It's very comparable to this season. Even last year, which wasn't Lamar Jackson's greatest season, but that's even comparable to this season that Fields is having. He's an ultra-talented runner, right? He makes plays, and you're just like, holy crap, that was unbelievable. But he has to improve like just Jalen Hurts has the past couple of years. really this past year as a passer. So if they're able to build some talent around here, the coaching is good, and he improves as a passer with those legs, he's gonna be a star. But they have to add talent. I wouldn't go all in like JM said, like you said, Joe. Don't go all in. Don't give him this massive contract extension. He may not be the savior, but definitely give him the opportunity to do so, because if you're going to have the draft capital and you're going to have the money to spend, you need to see if this guy is going to be, because remember, they traded up in the first round. They gave up another first round draft pick to get this guy. So you're all in on him. Not saying go all on him to give him an extension, but definitely add some pieces to this roster.
It's very odd though, because he was not a runner in college. Like when they drafted him out of Ohio State, he had barely over 1,000 yards in his entire college career on the ground, and he just put up 1,000 in one season in the NFL. So, to compare him to Lamar, I understand where it comes from. From watching the both of them, yeah, they obviously both run a lot. They're very fast and athletic, but I don't really see them being too similar in talent. I think they play a little differently, but I think that if you go out and you make an aggressive type move like getting Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, you go get him somebody like that, because let's remember the Ravens failed to do that for Lamar Jackson. Yes, he has Mark Andrews. Yeah, he had Mark Andrews, he has Mark Andrews, but the best receiver he ever had was Marquise Brown. So go out, get a good receiver. I'm sure there's going to be one on the trade market this offseason. Go get Justin Fields, the number one receiver.
I'm comparing Jalen Hurts' second season right now to the season that Fields is having, and it's very similar. So, yeah, could a number one wide receiver be the biggest difference? I don't know. I don't think for Fields it's going to be that. I think it's just going to be, completely studying the playbook. If it's the new offensive system, I don't know what it is, but I don't think a number one receiver is going to fix all of these issues that he has as a passer, but it's definitely possible. Jalen Hurts went to the playoffs last season and he was a front runner for the MVP until this recent injury. So it's definitely possible for a turnaround.
Yeah. And I think that the Jalen Hurts comparison is really good too. I agree. He's playing at a similar level that Hurts played at last year. It's amazing the perception of these quarterbacks, depending on the way that the rest of the team is playing. So, like the Eagles made the playoffs last year, and then they got killed by the Buccaneers. And you were seeing articles all over the place talking about should the Eagles move on from Hurts, and they have a roster that's maybe a quarterback away from contending. And they were talking about maybe a Russell Wilson trade, a Lamar Jackson trade, whatever it may be. And you won't see anything like that with Fields this offseason. People are going to say that and I agree with these people that say that they should give Fields the opportunity to prove that he's the franchise guy. But it's because the Bears are so bad that obviously they're not a quarterback away. So even if they were to trade for a Lamar Jackson this offseason, they added nothing else. I mean, they're still not going to be good. So Fields is going to get every opportunity that he can to prove that he's the franchise guy, at least after, I would say even if he doesn't take a major step forward next season, he'll probably be able to play out most of his rookie deal. Who knows if they'll pick up his fifth-year option, whatever. But I think that Fields is going to get plenty of opportunity. A lot of the reasons because the Bears are so bad. And they're just going to let him, take a hold of this franchise and hope that they have the franchise guy. Whereas, like, you're seeing that with the Jets now. The Jets have a great roster. And they don't have a quarterback. I like Mike White. I don't think that he's a franchise guy. Zach Wilson, I mean, a lot of Jets fans already want to move on from him. I don't think they're crazy to think that third year is the make or break year. But again, the problem is that I'm sure if the Jets were bad this year and Wilson was playing like this, people would be making excuses for him. They'd say that the team around him is bad and that you drafted this guy second overall, you got to give him every opportunity. But now you're seeing the frustration because the Jets clearly have a great roster. But they're a quarterback away. If they got a Lamar Jackson or somebody like that, I mean, the Jets could be Super Bowl contenders. So it's amazing the way that these situations affect, how long these quarterbacks are given to prove that they're starters.
Well, there you go. What is there to think about? You have Justin Fields, a guy who is playing well on a bad team in his second year, and then you have Zach Wilson, who's playing poorly on a good team in his second year. And you want to go give him another chance? I
I
know
don't think it's
guys'
out
careers
of
don't end in the second year, but come on.
I don't think it's completely out of the question. Like I wouldn't I could see if why the Jets would move on because of the fact that their roster is where it's at, and maybe they don't want to waste having all this young talent on these cheap deals right now, and then having poor quarterback play and it goes nowhere. So I could see why they'd want to move on from him, but I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility that Wilson could still prove to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Again, he is only in his second season, and that third season
Yeah,
is really
but
to make a break year.
I think we realize his ceiling is significantly lower than we thought. And I also think why go take that chance next year saying, well, hopefully he could turn into a starting caliber quarterback when you could just move on, get some draft capital for him, and go get a starting capital quarterback on the trade market, on the free agent market, or even sign Mike White back, whatever you got to do. You don't have to go out and get Josh Allen, just somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I think that a lot of Jets fans, they want like a Jimmy Garoppolo because of how similar the scheme that they run is to San Francisco. Um, I think that Wilson has more raw talent than Garoppolo does. And he's capable of, he's a bigger arm, he's more athletic, he's capable of, the one thing Wilson's good at is the backyard football stuff. He gets out of the pocket, he's capable of making those big throws down the field.
But
His
that's
biggest
it.
problem though is
Yeah.
he can't play within structure or within the system at all. He's horrible at that.
Yeah.
So to me, if you're somehow able to tap into that and get him to use that raw talent, but not be the only way that he can produce, but be able to play within structure. I mean, if you look at Jimmy Garoppolo, if you watch him, you know that he's probably not a top 30 quarterback in the NFL in terms of just talent, but he succeeds because he plays within that incredible Shanahan scheme that have all those great weapons, and he's able to succeed with that. I mean, I believe he's like top 6 in the league in the last 5 years in EPA, which is crazy. I mean, the fact that he's putting up those type of efficiency numbers with, one of the worst arms at any of the starters, probably having some of the least talent is incredible to me. If you could put a guy with Wilson's kind of talent and get him to play like Garoppolo, I can't imagine the kind of offense that you'd be able to run, but who knows if he'll be capable of doing that, Wilson.
Joe, the Jets currently don't have an offensive coach on the roster or a coach on the roster that can get that out of Wilson. I don't want to just sit here and bash on Mike LaFleur, but I don't know. I think you've seen enough complaints from Jet fans. I think some of the play calls, especially that game against Minnesota, I think LaFleur hasn't been what you expected he was going to be this season. Again, I'm not making an excuse for Wilson because he's not very good. He's not good at all. But there is going to be a coach out there somewhere that takes a chance on Zach Wilson, that believes that they can fix him, and maybe they do fix him. Is it Shanahan? Is it – I don't know who it is, but an offensive-minded coach will take that chance on him because of what you see with the backyard football. But it's almost like you got to teach him the basics.
Yeah.
I would put a lot of money
with...
that he's going to fail. I'm just saying.
No, I would agree with you too, but there are coaches that believe like, they can fix them.
I've come to a realization about Zach Wilson. He was a quarterback who had a soft schedule his junior year at BYU. It was during a COVID recruiting process. They fell in love with his pro day. He shot up draft boards. The guy can't complete a 5-yard swing route. I've never seen him before. I really think he has the yips. Like, he cannot complete a little dump down to his running back. And I think it's because he's just like he's all in his head. I don't know what it is, but obviously he's an athletic guy. He's got a good arm, right? He could throw it against his body and from all these angles. But throwing it, that's wonderful. And maybe you could pull that off in college football, in a non-power conference and wherever you want to do it. But you come into the NFL, everybody says the game is so much faster. Everything's flying. The windows get so much, they close so much. And there's just that much less time to make decisions, to put it in that right window. And I just don't think he's ever going to be able to make that next step. I just don't think he's made for the NFL. If
you can't succeed, and I'm not saying Kyle Shanahan's offense is this, just basic thing, but if you clearly, like you guys were saying, very non-talented quarterbacks are succeeding in this offense. If Zach Wilson is not succeeding in this style of offense, where's the guy going to succeed? I mean, come on, where is he going to succeed?
See, I actually disagree with what JM said. I think that the reason why he was taken second overall is because he is built for the NFL. The fact that he can make, I mean, if you look at Patrick Mahomes, when he was, before he was drafted out of Texas Tech, his mechanics were like all over the place. He, everybody saw that ridiculous arm talent that he had, and the way he was able to, play the backyard football. This term we keep using, and Andy Reid, who's one of the best offensive head coaches ever, developed him into the player that he is today. And if you look at Mahomes' mechanics compared to where they were at Texas Tech, they're, 100 times cleaner. I think that Wilson does have that. The reason why he was taken second overall is because a lot of people were calling him Mormon Mahomes, is because he does have that capability. He has the capability to push the ball down the field, throw on the run, all of those things. He has that huge arm. He has all that raw talent. It's the same thing with Josh Allen when he came out of college. He didn't go to a Power 5 school. I think that and Allen, when he came into the league, mechanics all over the place. He wasn't accurate. I think that Wilson has all of those raw tools, and he's capable of getting there, but the mechanics need to be seriously cleaned up. I think that, there might be a leadership issue there. I mean, they're humans too. I mean, it seems like he has maybe something wrong with him in terms of his mentality or whatever it is.
He's a spoiled brat.
I don't know how hard of a worker he is. I don't want to speak to that. I don't want to speak to something I don't know. But I think that he is made for the NFL, and the reason why he doesn't complete those 5-yard swing passes or a slant over the middle is because his mechanics are horrible. And you see that talent come out when he comes out of the pocket, but not when he's in it, not when he's asked to play within structure.
Joe, this guy shouldn't have been taken number 2 overall by a team like the Jets for 5,000 different reasons, and I'll give you a few of them because you just made some great points. Mahomes was taken by Andy Reid, who at the time was still a very well-regarded head coach, offensive genius. They were winning with Alex Smith, and Mahomes didn't have to jump in right away. So that's number one. He didn't have to jump in right away. There was already an established offensive head coach there. And they traded up for him in the first round, but they took him with the 10th overall pick. And again, already had a quarterback there. The Jets had a second-year GM, a first-year head coach, a first-year offensive coordinator. You're going to take a chance, and I don't want to play Monday morning quarterback here, but we're going to take a chance on a guy that didn't play in a Power 5 school. Now we're seeing is a massive project, or was going to be a massive project. When the Bills took Josh Allen where they took him, they knew it was a project. And by the way, when Brian Daboll got in there, an offensive coordinator, an offensive mind, and was on that coaching staff, that's when he started to make some jumps. So, yeah. Of course, it's all about coaching, and it's all about the players you have around. Zach Wilson's got it made for him, had it made for him this season. And still, so
I mean, I don't disagree with you, but I think that, when you have the second overall pick, I mean, especially when you're drafting quarterbacks, because the hit rate on first round quarterbacks is a lot lower than a lot of people realize. You should be swinging for the fences, because if you're not swinging for the fences, that's how you end up with somebody like Baker Mayfield or Mac Jones, guys that don't have elite NFL caliber arms. And sure, Mac Jones is a fine starter.
Mac Jones is a fine starter. Is going to be starting a lot longer in this league than Zach Wilson's going to be.
But we don't know that. Like, again, we talk about like a Baker Mayfield type too. I mean, he was like the prototypical, he's NFL ready. I hate when people use that term, that he's NFL ready when he comes out of college, because to me, that just tells me that they have a high floor and a low ceiling a lot of the time, because Baker Mayfield was one of those guys. High floor, and we're going to say Baker Mayfield is going to be a career low-level starter, high-end backup throughout his whole career, because he doesn't have the arm strength to push the ball downfield. He's not the guy that Wilson has the potential to be. Again, it would not shock me. I mean, Drew Lock is another guy. When he came out of college, huge project, big arm, he didn't work out. For every Pat Mahomes you get a Drew Lock. But to me, if you have the second overall pick, you shouldn't be looking to play it safe. Like, to me, if you were the New York Jets, should you be saying, oh man, we should have taken Mac Jones? I don't know if I have that mentality, because to me, Mac Jones is always going to be like, the 18th best quarterback in the league, the 20th best quarterback in the league. I mean, is that really who you want? Eventually, you're going to have to pay him. That's like what happened with Jared Goff. Jared Goff, he gets paid like he's a franchise quarterback, and all of a sudden the Rams want to move on to that from that contract immediately. And Mac Jones is again one of those guys, doesn't have the big arm. To me, if you have the second overall pick, you should be shooting for the stars.
I view Jones differently than you guys do. I like Mac Jones. He's definitely taken a step back this year, but I don't think you could be in a worse offensive system. They have a good running game, but their receivers are not much. I'm a Mac Jones fan.
Mac Jones' ceiling is Jimmy Garoppolo. That's who Mac Jones is.
I agree with that.
Okay, so get me to a Super Bowl, get me to NFC Championship games.
A lot easier said than done, though. He's to get you to a Super Bowl. You're asking me get me a top 3 defense in the NFL. He's a guy you're gonna have to have a really good roster around. He's not gonna be a guy like Justin Herbert who's elevating his team, keeping them in the wild card race. Everything. No, they are still in the wild card race because he has the greatest head coach in NFL history. The offense isn't terrible. It's not good. It's not terrible, though. And the defense is good.
The offensive system with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge may be the worst tandem of offensive coaches because they're both not offensive coaches you may ever see. Their wide receivers are not good. So I don't think it's not bad. I think it's really bad. And
their offensive line isn't bad, though.
No, their offensive line isn't bad, and they do have a decent running game. Ramondre Stevenson's a good player, but come on. It's not ideal. And I think, by the way, Mac Jones, I would say a little higher. I think Mac Jones could be a Kirk Cousins. That's where I would say.
Think Cousins is like
where's Cousins? Like 12 on the quarterback ranking?
Cousins is like the high end of that tier of quarterback that JM was just talking about.
Like
Cousins
Jimmy
is like he's that guy that you need to have the talent around him to get anywhere. Like Cousins is not the type that's good. And I like Kirk Cousins more than I think a lot of other people do, but I still don't think he's the type of guy that is ever going to elevate your roster to the point where, a Herbert does, Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, those type of guys. So I think that, again, if we're talking about, you want to draft your franchise guy, I don't think that, if you tell the Jets, you should take Matt Jones second overall, he could end up being Jimmy Garoppolo. I think the Jets are going to laugh in your face and say, well, then we could just sign a veteran free agent that is of that tier. And I think that's where the Jets are right now. The Jets right now are in that boat where they might sign or trade for a veteran quarterback, a Derek Carr, a Jimmy Garoppolo, because they can win with that guy. But would they have rather Wilson panned out to be a high-end quarterback that could elevate the roster? Of course.
I'm not saying the Jets should say, oh, let's just take the safer pick. But I don't know if it's worth all of the risk that Zach Wilson was. And again, we're looking back on it in hindsight. And, I liked Zach Wilson. I thought he was going to be the Jets' next quarterback. We saw what we saw.